Hello students. This lesson is on solving problems by elimination. This video is going to assume that you've done problems similar to this already. And this is just going to be a review of elimination to start with, and then we'll get into a little bit deeper in elimination. So the lesson that you've had before this, you took a problem like this with a system of equations and solved it using elimination. Remember, you solved it by lining up your x's and y's, your equal signs, and your constants. When you did that, you would then ensure that something was going to cancel, as 2y minus 2y, that's 0, so we'll call that it cancels. Then you added 7x and 7x to get 14x, and then you added 2 minus 30 to be negative 28. So you have 14x equals negative 28. Then we would solve for x. The whole point of doing this was so the y's would cancel. Divide both sides by 14. So you end up with x equals negative 2. So that's a quick review of elimination. Well, that's not quite enough of a review. Let's continue that review and do a problem like this one right here. Let's do one like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared on this one, but it won't take me long. Then we did some problems like this one. Number 16 in this worksheet I'm looking at, it would be 4a plus b equals 2. And then we'd have 4a plus 3b equals 10. Okay, so there's the next one I want to review. Okay, remember there's two things to check before you do these. Number one, did my variables line up? And my equal signs and my constants. Yes. Number two, is something going to cancel? 4 and 4 is 8a, 4b, 12. No, nothing canceled. Not going to do any good at this point to multiply them together. But I notice that I've got 4a and 4a. If one of those were negative, then it would work. So I multiplied both sides by a negative 1. And that would give me here negative 4a minus b equals negative 2. Now keep in mind, once again, that equation right there and that equation right there are really the same equation. Okay? And now I don't need to change the other equation. Let's see what color that's going to turn. Nope, that's the same color I just used. What about that? Oh, that'll work. This equation right here and this equation that I'm going to rewrite right here are the same. So I've still got those same equations. 4a plus 3b equals 10. Now, everything's lined up. Something will cancel. And I end up with 2b equals 8. Divide both sides by 2. And I get b equals 4. Now, alphabetical order. A, B. So 4 is right there. By the way, I just realized on this one I solved for x, but I did not find y. We'll come back to this one in just a second. So I found x is negative 2, but I haven't found y yet. Coming back to this one, I've got something comma 4. Well, to find it, I plug b back into one of the equations. So 4a plus b equals 2. Looks like I better zoom out a little bit so you can see that. B is really 4, so it's 4a plus 4 equals 2. Subtract 4 from both sides, so I end up with 4a equals negative 2. Divide both sides by 4, and I get that a equals negative 1/2. Now I just tried it with 4a plus b equals 2. Now let's try and check it with 4 times negative 1/2 plus 3 times 4, and that should, that should equal 10. That would be negative 2 plus 12. Does that equal 10? Yep, negative 2 plus 10, or 12, equals 10, so I checked it. That's just a quick review. I went through that kind of quick. Now this one right here. Should have plugged in my negative 2 to one of these equations. I won't check it, but I will find y. So I have 7 times negative 2 plus 2y equals 2. That's negative 14 plus 2y equals 2. Add 14. 2y equals 16. Y equals 8. There we go. So I forgot to get the solution on the first one. Second one is right there. Substitute or myself will pause this now, or you can pause it at home and review it if you want. But that's our quick review of how to do elimination that we learned last time. Today, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit of a step up. The step up is really not that big of a step though. And what that is it will take problems like this one. Here we go. I could take 2x plus 3y equals 6. Or x plus 2y equals 5. Now as I look at this and I want to solve this system of equations, 2x plus 3y equals 6, x plus 2y equals 5. Here it is. Everything's lined up. Nothing's going to cancel. Okay? Well, if I change something to a negative, will anything cancel? No. Nothing's going to cancel even if I switch things to negative. But I want to look, I either want this to be a 2 or I would either want a 2 and a negative 2 or a 3 and a negative 3 or a 2 and a negative 2. Basically, one of these coefficients in front of the x or the y need to be opposites of each other. I look for an easy one. Well, and again, I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by the same thing. Just like the last time, if you remember on this one right here, I multiplied both sides of this equation by -1. Okay, well, I'm going to multiply both sides of an equation here by something to get it to eliminate. Easy way is to multiply that x by -2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by -2 instead of -1 this time. That gives me -2x minus 4y equals -10. And just to keep this straight, that equation and that equation are exactly the same. The other equation I don't need to change, so that is 2x plus 3y equals 6. Okay? Oh, I guess if I'm going to do that, I'll show you that those two are the same so that you can see where they came from. Now, everything's lined up. Something's going to cancel right there. -4y plus 3y is -1y or -y equals -10 plus 6 is -4. So y equals +4. This is the part that should be so easy for everyone to do because no matter whether you're using substitution or elimination, it's the same. Plug it back into one of the equations. I'll pick what I think looks like the easiest equation. X plus 2y equals 5. Now notice I don't use this one. I could use this one, but I don't want to use this one. Number one, it got more complicated. Number two, I did something to it. So if I made a mistake, it's going to throw it off even more. Go back to one of the original two equations. Okay, x plus 2y equals 5. Well, y equals 4. X plus 2 times 4 equals 5. That means x plus 8 equals 5. Mental math says that x has to be -3. So my solution here is -3, 4. By the way, if you're worried about notes, this would have been example 1, because if I was on the ball, I was planning on making those two the warm-up. So this was going over the warm-up today, and this would have been example number 1. Same thing that we did yesterday. Check. Does everything line up? Check. Is something going to eliminate? If not, get it ready to eliminate. Okay, then I'm going to add the equations together, and when I do that, something will eliminate. In this case, the x eliminated, and I just found y. That next step, fourth step, would be solve for y. In this case, I divided both sides by -1 to solve for y. And then obviously we know that we plug the y back in to find the x. If it's a substitute or Mr. Pfossat, I think now would be a good time to pause it if it hasn't happened already to see if there are any questions. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop this part of the lesson, but there's going to be a part 2. Part 2 is going to be to take a word problem and solve one of these by elimination using a word problem.